A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. So this book was copyright 1962, and I have this Ballantine edition here. This is a later print from Ballantine. But this is not the copy I read. This is a reread for me. And I believe the first time I read this book, I read one of these edited down US versions. And when I was doing a little research before reading this one, I found out that in the UK, when this book was originally published, it was the complete text. There's 3 sections to this book, and there's 7 chapters in each section. But when they brought this novel to the US, the publishers decided to omit the final chapter of the 3rd section. So if you've read this in the past, if you still have a copy around, go check your copy. If it ends on chapter 6, then you have the edited down version. But in 1988, Ballantine, this is like the first printing of when Ballantine published the full text in the US. And I believe if you get a more modern reprint of this book, you get the complete text as well. But I'm not positive about that. And then the other thing to note is a lot of people know about this book, probably from Stanley Kubrick's movie adaptation of this one. And what's interesting to note is the movie follows the edited down US version. So if you're familiar with the movie, it's also kind of missing that last section. Later in the video, I'm going to talk about what that adds to the book. I'm going to leave it spoiler free, but just kind of give you a slight glimpse of what it adds to the book. And I do think that if you haven't read that final chapter, you really need to, because it kind of completes the whole story to me. It elevated my reading a bit, because in the past I think I'd given this book about 4 stars, but after being so familiar with it now and on this reread, I think it's elevated my review up to a 5-star. And, you know, my history of this one, it goes back to when I was a teenager and I'd heard about the movie. And me and some friends got a copy of the movie and we watched it. And I'm pretty sure I fell asleep the first time going through it. But then after that, a little while later, I watched it again and kind of understood the plot and the themes a little bit better when I completed the movie. And then I found out that this was a novel, and so I went and read the novel. And then so this is my second reread on the novel, and I've seen the movie probably about 4 times. I rewatched the movie just the other day because my wife had never seen that, and it was kind of interesting to see her take as well. Now, I will say the movie and the book both have a little cloud over it based on some of the extremely violent scenes that are in both the movie and the book. And I will say, if you're very sensitive to those things, it's probably not going to be something for you. But if you can get over that a bit, it really does feed into the themes and the plot of this one. And if you stick with it, it's going to pay off, because it is a integral part of the story that Burgess is trying to tell in this one. There's also a lot of this kind of futuristic slang. This book takes place in London in the near future, and there's also this kind of like Eastern European flair to all this slang. And it would be really hard to understand, I think, if you just read this book for the first time, not knowing anything about the movie or any of that. But having watched the movie first, you can get a lot of context about these slang terms based on the characters' actions that you're watching, that I think reading it is a little more challenging. But me being very familiar with this, the slang aspect of the book was amazing. I didn't stumble over the slang this go around, and it kind of gave the prose this kind of a lyrical quality to it that just elevated the whole story up even more to me. But those are a couple like challenging things about this one, the violence and then the slang. But now let's kind of get into what the plot of this one is. It's pretty easy to describe. I mentioned it's broken up into 3 sections. So the first section, we're introduced to our main character, Alex, and his gang of 3 friends, him and 3 friends. And London is a bit of in a dystopian state. There's trash everywhere, there's homeless people, there's these gangs roving around, and they're doing all kinds of things. There's violence, there's theft, and there's other members of society who are doing quite well, even in the city. But they don't really want to go out at night for fear of these gangs. And it doesn't seem like the state is doing much to prevent these gangs from roving around, doing all their shenanigans around the city. So our main character, Alex, in the book, they're only 15 years old. If you've seen the movie, they look a bit older than that. But the first third of this book is them going around, bumping into rival gangs, stealing things, committing violence, all sorts of violence against innocent people. This is where some of the worst scenes are in the book. But it's really showing you what society has devolved into in certain aspects. And you know, our main character, he lives at home. He's kind of leading this double life. His parents aren't really sure what he's up to at night. And they're going around doing all these things. And towards the end of this first section, he gets caught in a very interesting way, and he gets sent to prison. So the middle section of this one is our main character, Alex, in prison. And he was not ready to be thrown into prison. He's got a very long prison sentence. He's kind of doing his best to navigate this very horrible situation he's in. And he finds out that there's this new kind of experimental procedure that will cure people of these violence, the violent acts that they're doing and these bad decisions they're making. And if you go through this procedure, you can be let out of prison early. So he's doing everything he can to take part in this procedure. And he does get put into this experimental procedure, and he gets cured and sent back out into society. And the last section of this book is him back into society, trying to navigate his way. Some aspects are, good that he's out of prison, but there's a bunch of other things that get in his way and prevent him from kind of leading a normal life and being reintegrated into society. Now, the themes that Burgess goes through are pretty awesome in this one. There's kind of some really blatant ones. There's this idea of kind of youth gone awry and what they could do to a society kind of to bring it down. There's this police state and the government that are trying to do what they can to keep these gangs in check. And some of these things that they're doing don't seem to be very ethical, including this experimental procedure. This procedure really, what it does at its core is kind of eliminates a person from being able to make bad decisions. So if the freedom of choice is taken away from you, there's this idea of, are you really even human anymore? Or what has it done to your humanity? And is it ethical for science and the political state and the government to be doing these things to people, even if it ends up kind of bringing this society out of this like dystopia? What is it doing to the people that are going through this? So there's a lot of interesting things there. And there's also a couple political groups that are kind of using our main character to kind of make sure that they stay in power and to get to their means that they're going for. And there's that whole layer in there as well. There's a bunch of other things going on in this. It's a real masterful book. I think every time you read it, you can pick out more things out of it. And it's definitely a highly recommended book by me. If you can get over some of the violence in the beginning, there's a lot of interesting things that come out of those our character and watching his character arc throughout the novel. Now, this final chapter, I guess I would say if you've read the edited version or if you've seen the movie, it kind of ends on a bit of a downbeat in a way. It's a little open to interpretation, but it's kind of implied what's going to happen next. And if you read that final chapter that was in this complete edition, it definitely ends on a little bit more optimistic note. And I think I don't know why they took it out of the publication in the US. I'm glad they brought it back, and I'm really glad that I read that part of the book this time through, because it adds a whole nother dimension to the book that I think was missing in my mind from both the movie and the book. So, let me know if you've read this book, if you even knew that there was an edited version. I encourage you to go out and find the complete text and read that final chapter, because I think it really made the book for me. So that's going to do it for this one. Next up, I'm reading The Next Wife's Wild Card, The Ark. So just look for that video review coming out soon. And once again, thanks for watching.